Voilà, Georges Feterman, vous êtes professeur en France, professeur agrégé.
Georges Feterman, so you're a professor, author of a certain number of books also, but president of the A.R.B.R.E. Association, A.R.B.R.E.S, arbre, trees in French. A.R.B.R.E. so remarkable trees, balance, research, study and protection or preservation. So, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Well, I will not stick by the topic, by the way, but I'd like to start first of all with this very nice tree. This is in fact the objective of the A.R.B.R.E. Association, so we would like to preserve trees, so-called extraordinary trees, and of course there will be a link between those trees and today's conference, so trees being a symbol of a certain number of things. I'll be out of topic at certain moments in time, but I'd like to apologize for this. There'll be a small difference, of course. We know that there are tree avenues linked to the war, but I think this is also interesting. So this is a very nice tree, more than 1,000 years old. So this one has all the virtues of a tree with history. It's located in the Eure-et-Loir department. And there's also a legend, by the way, so I'd like to read it very quickly. A lord going to war actually asks his wife to keep an eye on this tree, and this lady would actually cry just before this young tree, and that's why the tears of the lady allowed this tree to grow and live for 1,000 years. So this is a type of tree that we love in our association. Not this one, this is an oak tree, 1,000 years old also in Brittany, in forest of Pimpon, or Brocéliande. Some people know what it means. So this tree would have served as a shelter for a friar. Because of the trees, of the walls in the southern part of Brittany. There was a war in the Middle Ages, and many people knew what the landscape was all about, and people considered as evil beings were those who started the revolution, and of course the other people were the good ones. So apparently one of the priests actually would have been hidden by this tree. So this is also part of the legend. Then regarding remarkable trees, and I'll show quite a few trees around Verdun and the Argonne forest. Forests actually have been flourishing for more than a century now. So we've got very few nice trees or remarkable trees in French forests, because those forests have been used by people, of course. So this is a view of the Trançay forest, and I would like also to pay homage to forest workers who've decided to support our project in connection with those oak trees and try to have an influence on the French policies actually regarding tree preservation. And this is, of course, the topic that's been chosen by organizers of this conference. So we've got those alignments that are connected to the war, and then some tree alignments that may be considered as a symbol. Well, I discovered, for instance, that pine tree alignments in the southwestern part of France could be related to Protestantism. Again, another alignment of trees. We also work very closely with those people who decided to organize this conference. So we would like to preserve those alignments because we find them very beautiful, and may be interested in knowing that we have decided to create a label for remarkable trees. This is to preserve those isolated trees or those tree alignments, as the one you can see on the picture. So for some of them, well, this is not the case of this one, of course, because this is located in the Courance Castle domain, close to Paris. But if you look at France, we've got some problems, some issues actually with tree alignments. 1 month ago, actually, I visited the Département de la Corrèze, and the president of this department is actually felling trees all over the place because those tree alignments are considered as dangerous. So we would like to preserve them, to have them preserved in any way, because they may be related or not related to wars. So this is a very original one. I would like to say that those alignments may have symbolic value, of course, but may also have a biological value. So this is a biotope for many species, small animals, birds, insects, and so on. And then plane trees have been threatened for some time in the country because of a disease and some fungi or some insects in some cases, especially along the so-called Canal du Midi. Plane trees there are not in very good condition. Well, they've been a symbol of history, the history of this canal. I'd like to come back to this picture. So these are trees that are more symbolic, so they have to do with the resistance movement during the war. So this is an alignment in Limousin, Department Haute-Vienne in France. And this alignment actually leads you to a monument in honor of the resistance movement. Those people who actually were brave enough to face the SS troops of Hitler. And this alignment is a symbol of those fights. And I think it really deserves to be visited and preserved. This is one of the last trees that we spotted in the country. And again, this is a symbol. This is a Sophora tree from Japan. It's very nice, with many flowers, wonderful flowers this year. It is to be found in the department Seine-et-Marne, in a school actually that allows young people to make a living. It's some sort of military school, so as to help them actually to get out of difficulties. And this tree is a symbol of the rebirth of those young people. And when I started working with this label, so this is a Sephora, but had to be cut away actually because it had fallen on the ground, but then it grew new roots, and it's a forest. It's a one tree forest actually, and young people coming to this place would like to imitate these trees, so grow roots and start again in life. So this is a remarkable tree of France, and this is also the tree of the year, because we also organize a competition together with the National Office for Forests. And again, so this is an historic tree, tree of Sully, the minister of Henry IV, planted many trees. Well, at that time, in fact, France was cut into parts. We had the western part with elm trees, and on the other side, so lime trees. So you know what happened with those elm trees. There's one left in the Département de l'Aude, and this is in the small city of A.R.B.R.E. In fact, this is a lime tree, symbolizing, of course, the history of France. Those trees of Joan of Arc, so it is said that Joan of Arc prayed in front of this tree. But well, you need to be very careful, of course, because there are many legends, and if we had to count all the number of trees where Joan of Arc prayed, I think there are thousands of them. And then trees that have a relation with artists, so you probably know them. So this is in Cagnes-sur-Mer, in the southern part of France, so this is the Renoir Museum. And it's a very nice symbol, by the way, because at the end of his life, so Renoir had some difficulties. He couldn't paint anymore, had some problems with hands, articulations more precisely, and these olive trees are quite similar to the condition of which his hands were at that time. Then another symbol in the Fontainebleau forest was painted by many artists, time of Barbizon, so this is again a tree on rock. This one is related to a writer, Chateaubriand, who it is said had an affair with Madame de Cussine just behind the tree. So this is one of the largest plane trees, 13 meters. Then traditional trees. There are many of them in the region. So we've got many of them that are that serve for timber. Willow trees. So willow trees have also a problem in this country, especially in the eastern part of the country, because they die of a strange disease called calarosis. Then wonderful trees. This one is very nice. In the Caux country, what we call the Caux country, in Normandy, so you can see the roots, some form of a shell, and it's quite interesting to have a look at those roots, by the way, because you can see how they grew. So it's a tradition that is still very lively, although many of them have disappeared because after the war people wanted to produce wood and timber, and of course they felled those trees with the help of bulldozers. Those marvelous trees. It's called the Avenue of Giants. When they were young, so people used to intertwine twigs, and then the trees were simply abandoned, so the prairies have disappeared, forest took over, and those trees are to be found in the middle of a forest, but they were not in a forest at the time, so that's why they're quite straight, actually. But normally they should have been used to draw limits of fields, actually where the cows would be. So we had to insist on protecting those trees because we had to secure those places because of the public, because of people coming there. So this is a very nice place, and I'd like also to say a few words regarding this. I was actually thinking of this nice film that we've been making on trees. So there's a drone actually flying in the middle of this avenue, and the images are really perfect. So again, some views of those trees. In another place in France, so this is the type of trees you can find. These are pine trees of Boulange. In the Forez region, very close to the Loire River. So people used to cut trees so that they wouldn't exceed 1.5 meter, and then they would grow further. And then timber was sold to bakers, actually. And that's why they're called actually trees of boulange, boulange in French, so being a baker or a bakery. So we decided to keep that tradition alive. A symbol of life, a symbol of death. This is again a tree in Normandy, very close to a cemetery. They were planted on pagan tombs before the region was Christianized or turned to Christianity. These trees have been there for 1,200 years or 1,300 years, 1,700 years actually for the oldest one. I think there's an even older one in Britain. So we planted the church close to the tree and not the contrary. So the tree was there before the church. It used to be a pagan place of worship, and then the church was built and people moved over from paganism to Christianity. It's a symbol of death turning into a life salvation tree, you know, that those trees may be used to produce medicine against cancer, Taxol, they're also saving lives. So we've got 5 minutes. So that's what I call the kitsch tree. With religious elements in very good condition, so this means that the tradition is still going on. So this is a tree that was spotted in Brittany, so a young woman who died there. She was pursued by revolutionaries, and this is in the so-called Laguerche forest. Then again another type of tradition, statues and nails. And some people even put, well, I don't know what it is, I suppose it's, well, you know, something that should fight against diseases. Well, unfortunately, well, this should protect the tree. Well, why? Because otherwise so the tree would have been taken away if we had no tradition like this one. Then again, another type of tree in the Somme region, close to the River Somme, so where people put clothes on them so as to heal diseases. Well, this has been going on for centuries. Well, those trees have died, but people still put clothes on them. So this is again lively tradition. We should ask Social Security so as to see whether there are fewer ill people or sick people in the region. This is also very nice. Trees of people in love in Normandy, so where people still go on working on nut trees, and this should give you happiness. This is again another tree in the Somme River region. Then in Northern Ireland, a very nice place in Game of Thrones. And then some trees for a book on extraordinary forests, very close to Verdun, the Argonne forests. So I've decided to take pictures of those trees. So they were planted after First World War. So this is again one of those craters of bombshell. And then this forest has been flourishing for some dozens of years after the First World War. There's only one tree actually that has survived the First World War. So this is an oak tree on the road called Haute-Chevauchée. And this tree has apparently survived the First World War. Then, of course, cemeteries. And sometimes trees growing on fortifications. It's very close to what we see in Angkor in Thailand, Burma. So this is a place again. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you for listening to me.